This video is for AQA Business Studies, looking at Unit 6 and Human Resource Management, but in terms of organisational structures. So this video is going to be about hierarchy. Now, simply a hierarchy is that structure of different levels of management within a company. So as I've put here, it's a system in which indicates the level of authority within a business. The first two that we're going to look at is tall versus flat. So organisation A would be a tall hierarchy, and that has lots of layers of management. Again, if you're watching this video and you're a student at school, most schools have a tall hierarchy. You can see it from all the different layers of management, from your principal to your assistant heads to maybe your head of departments and pastoral leaders and so on. There's lots of different levels of management. And the characteristics of a tall hierarchy is that they've got a narrow span of control. So the managers are directly oversee fewer workers, so there's tighter control. And there's quite a long chain of command, so therefore, because of the amount of layers, there's lots of levels that the communication has to get through. Now, in terms of organisation B, that's a flat hierarchy, and you can see, obviously, they've got much less in terms of layers of management, and they have a wider span of control. Meaning, for example, one of the managers will be overseeing many more staff because they have to, because they haven't got the levels. Now, in terms of which one is the best, that obviously depends on the situation, and therefore I've just created a couple of scenarios where you maybe prefer a tall to a flat or a flat to a tall. So the first one I've put is a tall might be more appropriate than a flat when there's need for rigid control of the hierarchy, again with a narrow span of control, or when the leadership is more manager-centred and believes senior skill level is needed to drive the business forward. So, for example, if it's an autocratic leader, maybe a paternalistic leader, or if you think about Time-Bound and Smith and they're much more management-centred, then they might prefer a taller hierarchy, perhaps. When the cultural belief is one of power and workers require clear instructions. So this could relate to Theory X workers, because Theory X would want those direct instructions, and they wouldn't want as much delegation and empowerment. Or when the management believes that promotional opportunities may inspire subordinates, and that's one way of motivating the workforce, is to open up for internal vacancies. So now if we look at flat again, this is just in certain situations, but when there is more creativity needed from the workforce and delegation is encouraged, because obviously there's fewer managers, they may need to place more responsibility to the subordinates. And again, that could help develop them, it could help train them, and if you think about in terms of Hertzberg and his motivators, the fact that there's more maybe job enrichment, job enlargement, and just empowerment in general could be very motivational for staff. The only thing I will say though is because there's fewer promotional opportunities, that might cause a bit of conflict with that development. And management might be more trusting and therefore have a wider span of control. So another situation is when the management is subordinate-centred and believe that too many layers could increase bureaucracy and communication needs to be swift. So, for example, if it's they may believe that it's inefficient in terms of decision making. I know, for example, Rolls-Royce, they had lots of profit warnings and they had quite a tall hierarchy, and when they brought a new CEO in, the first thing he identified was the inefficiency of the structure, and he delayered. And what I mean by that, he removed layers from the hierarchy to try and speeding up decision making, try to make it much more efficient. Possibly when the cultural belief is one of empowerment and therefore it's more appropriate for Theory Y workers, because obviously Theory Y worker, the characteristics of a Theory Y is that they are ambitious, they want to be empowered, they want that delegation. And finally, when the business has a low human resource management budget and therefore labour costs need to be minimal. Because remember, with a tall hierarchy, because there's lots of layers of management, for every layer you're probably expecting a wage or salary increase because of the added responsibility. However, in organisation B, with fewer layers, there'd be fewer differences with wage demands. So the next two hierarchies that we're going to look at is a centralised hierarchy and a decentralised hierarchy. Now the difference between the two is mostly down to decision making. So a centralised hierarchy, the decision making comes from the core of the business. So only the senior management would make the decisions. In a decentralized hierarchy, there's much more delegation over decision making. So, for example, if you think that all of these little spots here, imagine that these are branch managers, or even like maybe functional managers. Then the main management team actually allows these junior managers, branch managers, functional managers to make decisions. So they actually delegate decision making. Now, again, which one's better? It just depends on the situation. So, centralised is more appropriate than decentralised when there is a need for a standardised approach to ensuring consistency. So, if you think about, for example, McDonald's and all their franchises across the UK, you can look at it from the point of view that they want every McDonald's to have the same consistent approach. They want everything in terms of supplies, in terms of prices, in terms of customer service, everything to be standardised, because that is what McDonald's are well known for excellent customer service, fast service, and a menu that everybody knows. So therefore, they do offer a centralised approach. Apparently, McDonald's do take on a lot of advice from their franchise managers, but they will have the final say. Also, when there are external threats to the business, and management need to act swiftly. So, for example, if they are having I don't know, if there's some issues going on in the economy, maybe the economy is not doing very well, and that's posing threats maybe on revenue or costs. They might have to act very, very quickly, and because the main management are making decisions, they might have a better overview of the business's current position, and therefore make the most appropriate decisions. Or if maybe a new competitor enters the market and that causes threats, again, with centralised business, they'll be able to make quick decisions to kind of, as I've put there, act swiftly. Another reason in terms of centralised is when there's tight financial budgets, and therefore, again, main management would want to oversee these decisions because of that tight budget. Now, for decentralised, it's more appropriate when there's the need for local responsiveness. So what I mean by that is, if you think about before, I said about maybe these could be branch managers that have been delegated the decision making. Well, in terms of branch managers, they obviously understand the branch, they understand the customers of the branch. They are much more in terms of they have better understanding of what their local customers perhaps want in comparison to the overall manager. If you think about companies that have lots and lots of different chains, they have lots of different sites, they might even operate all over the world. You may argue that they need, so for certain countries, for example, they may need that local response, they may need that local knowledge, and therefore, because they have that local knowledge, they can make the best decisions. And obviously that links to customer service. So when customer service is crucial and the business needs to depend on the branch manager's understanding of the customer. So for example, if their unique selling point is customer service, they may want it. So the branch manager has that responsibility because, again, they're the best ones. In terms of functional managers, you can look at it from the point of view that they're specialised in that functional area. So, for example, marketing, and therefore the overall manager might think they're better to make the decisions because they are specialised and they're experts within that field. Or when they actually want to develop their junior management, so maybe they believe that, again, if they want their managers to be as effective as possible, then they need to be put in I suppose situations where they're increasing their experience of decision making. Now, when I talked about centralised and I said when there's external threats, I read a very interesting article the other day based on this, and actually said that sometimes decentralised might be good in those situations as well, because if you train your junior management, then they will be able to quickly react to external threats. But I think there's two arguments. There's obviously the argument that I've made about the overall manager having a better overall picture of the business, but also in terms of junior management, if they're trained and they've got experience with decision making, then they might be able to respond as quickly. The final hierarchy is a matrix structure. Now, sometimes you might find the matrix structure actually within another hierarchy as well, and the reason for that is because the characteristics of a matrix structure is for set projects. So, as an example, Dyson at the moment, they've just recruited for their self-driving, driverless cars project in terms of research and development and the operational side of creating one of the first driverless cars. Now, it goes against everything that they do usually in the day-to-day operations at Dyson, so therefore they've created a new structure, a matrix structure, which is just based on that project. Now, within that, they'll look for people, maybe specialists from different functional areas such as operations, such as marketing, such as finance, and they'll get them working together. So maybe these people have never worked together before, but on this project they'll work together, I suppose using the diverse skills from all the different functional areas for the completion of the project. So the advantages of a matrix structure, it helps to improve cross-functional communication and teamwork. So for example, the specialist from marketing then can feed back the information to the marketing team, or the same for the production department perhaps. Synergy of specialised workers across the business working together to enhance the performance. So again, you've got specialists from different functional areas working together, and it really does, I suppose, teamwork is absolutely essential for this to work. The disadvantages of a matrix structure, it can sometimes cause conflict between the task manager and the functional manager. So for example, if you think about the marketing specialist that has joined this team, they might still have their day-to-day responsibilities from the marketing functional manager. However, they might be prioritising this project, and therefore there's that conflict of who should they really prioritise, the project or their usual functional job. And also, it can be difficult to coordinate and may take time to implement a team culture between the employees involved, like I said before, because they may never have worked together before.